He liked to laugh. He liked to find the humor in things. As serious as he looked out on the field, there were little things that he did that kind of got people at times. Shannon Drayer here. I had the unique opportunity of covering Ichiro from day one in Major League Baseball to, well, I guess his induction to the Hall of Fame. We all know what he did on the field. We know the accomplishments. We know what he was on the field. We can close our eyes. We can see him making a catch in right field. And of course, the iconic sleeve tug at the plate. What you might not know is some of the behind the scenes things with Ichiro. And for me, that was what was most special about covering him day in and day out. Every day we went to the ballpark while Ichiro was a Mariner. There was a chance that on the field we might see something we'd never seen before, but also a very good chance that in the clubhouse and behind the scenes, we definitely were going to see things we have never seen before. It was so interesting, and there are so many stories. Today, I'd like to share some of those with you. And this, of course, was Ichiro's clubhouse. It's changed quite a bit in design, but the layout is still pretty much the same. Of course, your front door over here, sometimes Ichiro came through that door. Sometimes he came through the back food room and came through that entrance. And that is where he sat and had his plate of Ichi wings every night before every home game. And that was an invention of Chef Jeremy. Ichiro told him to make him something, and Jeremy had put out this entire Japanese sushi feast for him, and he's like, nah, I think I might like some wings. And so Ichi wings, or what Jeremy would call his Mexiyaki wings, were what he would have every day. On the road, a little bit different. Now, Ichiro, make no mistake, fine dining, that's a big thing with him, but on the road, California Pizza Kitchen, and he also loved a good hamburger, not from a fancy place. It had to be a local place that kind of if you know type place. It might be Town Topic in Kansas City. There was Caps in St. Petersburg, and of course Super Duper in the Bay Area. So that's how he did it on the road, sometimes. Anyways, locker was right around in this area, right over here. His preparation was so different. The stretches were so different. His routines were so different. The way he sat in his chair was so different. He would often sit in his chair with his legs tucked under him, and he would be eating a rice ball that his wife made for him that he would also have before each game and sometimes give to some of his better friends. Mike Cameron often received the rice balls as well. Lucky Mike Cameron. But this is where he was. We would see him do the stretches right around here. This was not here. You might remember Ken Griffey Jr. coming on board and hearing about the tickle fights that they would have in the clubhouse. Well, those all took place right here. Ichiro loved to laugh, and you could hear his laugh throughout the room when he would get tackled by Junior and be absolutely helpless on the floor right here. This is also where we would interview Ichiro after games, and this was one of the most terrifying moments in my career. Ichiro would sit at his locker quite often after games for the media scrum, and he would be on a folding chair facing inward to his locker, towel around his neck, interpreter in front of him, and the media all fanned out behind him. And he would turn around and he would address us and he would look at us, but when the questions were being asked, quite often his back was to us. So that was something that was different. I did well in the post-game interviews. He often took my questions. He always took my questions for that matter. I felt we had a really good relationship up until one day. One day we had a whole group of media behind Ichiro, and I waited a couple of questions in and I asked the question I had and he didn't answer it. I thought that was odd. The next day, did the same thing, no answer. It was no longer odd. I was in trouble. I didn't know what I had done. And I went to one of the Mariners media relations people, and I'm like, hey, I don't know what's going on. I think Ichiro's mad at me. He won't answer my questions. Can you please find out? And a couple days, this person comes back to me, and he said, yeah, Ichiro says you disrespected him. And I had no idea what he possibly could have been talking about. I had ultra respect for Ichiro. Apparently, I had rolled my eyes at Ichiro when he was giving one of the answers. And I knew right away what had happened. Back then, I had just started doing TV, and watching the videos back, I realized that when I'm thinking, I look up. And Ichiro's answers were never what you would expect them to be. They were never stock, they were never canned, there were no cliches. You had to think about what he was talking about. And I have no doubt he said something that I found very interesting or challenging, and I was thinking about it. And Ichiro thought at the time that I rolled my eyes. Well, that was remedied very quickly. Had a quick meeting with his interpreter, got back to Ichiro. He thought it was funny. Everything was fine from there. But again, that falls into the category of things that are not happening in any other clubhouse. You may have heard how important it was that Ichiro treat his equipment with the utmost respect. His bats, perfectly black lacquered, they didn't go in any old bat bag when he traveled. They went in a humidor. It was important to treat his equipment with respect. He took care of them himself, and it was a part of his everyday routine. You saw him taking care of the equipment. So that's where another one of my nightmares came in. Ichiro, when he would come out to take batting practice, would pop out of the dugout. 2 black lacquered bats would be with him, and he would lean them up against the bench, side by side. Nobody touched those bats. One day, we were waiting for the manager, and I was sitting probably about this far from the bats, talking to some other reporters. Lean back, and the next thing you know, one of the bats falls to the ground. I was mortified. Then I am faced with the dilemma, do I touch the bat? Do I pick it up and put it back? I thought I'd better do that. Picked it up, leaned it up against the bench very quickly, and got the heck out of here. The next day, I wasn't messing around. When I had some free time and I was going to sit on the bench, I went all the way down here. Sat down right here, minding my own business. Ichiro comes out of the door, 2 black lacquer bats, didn't put them down at the end of the bench, walked all the way over to where I was sitting, laid the 2 bats down right next to me. Skipped up the steps, ran out to right field. That was Ichiro's sense of humor right there. At All-Star games, Ichiro gave the address to the American League All-Star team before they took the field. And I've never gotten the particulars of it. I don't think anybody has. But David Ortiz said he would just be rolling on the floor. He was laughing so hard. You know, that was Ichiro. He always had a quick quip. He liked to laugh. He liked to find the humor in things. As serious as he looked out in the field, there were little things that he did that kind of got people at times. Another one, we were in San Diego. There was a Starbucks in the lobby of the hotel. I went downstairs to get a coffee one day, and there was a long line. And I saw Ichiro, 3 or 4 people in front of me. And what's the protocol here? Do you say hello to the international superstar, or do you let him be? What do you think? It was rude that I didn't say hi. I didn't know what to do. Put my head down, pretended that I didn't see him, felt terrible about it. Later that day, through his interpreter, I told him, hey, Ichiro, I'm really sorry. I saw you in line. I didn't know what to say. I was afraid if I saw something, everybody would be coming up to you. I didn't want to draw any attention to you. And he said to me, next time, call me Brad Pitt. This, of course, was the area that Ichiro patrolled. It is Area 51 up here. The Ichimeter lady had his hit counter up here as well. One of the things that was fun to watch with Ichiro is, and it was important to him as well, if there was anybody in the building during batting practice and he was out shagging fly balls, he would put on a show. He loved to do the behind the back catches. He would do all sorts of things if there were groups here, because he very much believed that the show was part of what he did, that people wanted to see that. One of the really interesting things that I found about him playing out here, you see what the pattern of the grass is right now? You see different patterns throughout the year. And when Ichiro was here, the pattern that you saw in the outfield, well, that was up to him. The groundskeepers mowed the grass in the configurations that Ichiro wanted, not because of style, but because the direction of the blade of grass, which way it was falling, would impact how the ball got to Ichiro. And that was something that he depended on sometimes for the grounders that came to the outfield. That's how meticulous he was in everything he did, right down to blades of grass. When I look down on the field and think of Ichiro from here, you might think I would be thinking of any of the hundreds of wonderful plays he made in right field, or stolen bases, or gazillion hits he had. But one of the things that really struck me is what he did in 2020 and 2021 down on the field here. Those, of course, were the pandemic years, and we on the radio side were not allowed to travel those 2 years. So every game, home or away, we came up to these booths, and I say "the" because there were only 3 of us that were allowed in each one, so some in this one, some next door. And we would call the game and do the pre and post from monitors that had different feeds for us from where the team was. They would put the game on the big board in front of us. And it was just surreal to be watching this and calling it and not be there. There were times when we did games when there were concerts going on in front of us. There were at least a dozen, probably more, graduations going on in front of us when we were doing games. Team might be in Anaheim, they might be in Oakland, they could be anywhere. We were here, game on the board, concert, graduation, down below. There was even one funeral that took place while we were doing a game. What an odd time it was. Had to be an odd time for Ichiro too. When he came back to the team in 2018, he played just 15 games. And it was in the middle of May when the announcement was made Ichiro would transition to a front office move. Ichiro no longer was an active member of the team, on roster only. He still came out every day and went through his normal routine, took batting practice. And if you think about it, doing that for how many months without the opportunity to go out and play, you wonder just what he was thinking at the time. Back during the pandemic, he would come out when the team was on the road, do a little bit more of an intense workout, have his interpreter with him. And what was different about that time is players that were injured, players that were rehabbing, they had to stay in this building or at the alternate site. So most of them would be here. Kind of little by little, you started to see it happen. Ichiro would be out there doing his thing, doing his routines, and the next thing you know, he would be playing catch with the guys that were rehabbing, or perhaps running with them. Then you'd see him having conversations with them afterwards. At one point, he was helping a pitcher, and he got down in a crouch and decided, okay, you need to throw like I am a catcher. Later that day, he ordered a full catcher's getup. He had the mask, he had the pads, everything, the glove, and he decided if I'm going to do this, I'm going to do it right so I can help the pitchers that I am helping here correctly. And that was, to me, just a huge example of how much he likes to give back, how much he wants to give back to this team. That's how much when you hear him talk about he wants to do things to help the team, to help his teammates, to help the Mariners. That's how far he would go with that. And he did that the entire time when the team was on the road during the pandemic years. It was really kind of moving when you thought about it. And Ichiro, when I think about him, I think about how in that time, if you asked any kid who their favorite player was, it was Ichiro. For a time I thought that was because I thought he was a cartoon character. He had the one name on his back, the plays that he made, and he kind of went out of his way to put on a show, and I think he very much earned that from the kids out there. They got it right away. Ichiro did have a sense of joy and fun in the game, even if he looked stoic out there most of the time. What really struck me about him was the commitment, and it was never so on display than before the 2009 season. Ichiro reported to camp, had the WBC, and things just weren't the same. He didn't look the same. He wasn't kind of as bright-eyed, he wasn't as energetic, and they found out he had a bleeding ulcer at the time. And you think about everything that he has put on himself to do everything that he has done. He's a pioneer in the game, broke down barriers, didn't want to just come over here and play the game. He wanted to be the best at the game. Was a superstar of just different proportions than you can even imagine. But here in Seattle, I think he really took some enjoyment from what he saw from the fans. And we talked about the show that he liked to put on. That was part of it. If it was a tough season for the Mariners, he was going to make a ticket worthwhile with the display that he put on. That was important to him. But you pile all of that up. Did that contribute to a doctor telling him in spring training that, you know what, if you don't stop right now and that ulcer perforates, you could die? Ichiro's response, I think I'll take my chances. Fortunately, he came to his senses, started the year on the IL, still finished with 200 plus hits.